machine switching a bit of time. The development costs, we put a lot of work into both designs, countless hours, so paying 4 of us about $30 an hour amounts to this much for all the work that we put in. So our fully burdened cost, if we're only making 5 cars, is really, really high. But, if you go to the next slide, I did a quick check to see if the changing the annual volume actually changed the price. So if you see, if we make 5,000, our fully burdened cost goes down to $130 essentially. So we're saving a lot of money by making it in higher volumes because the development cost is getting amortized over the annual volume. So the complex design, since we put so much extra work into the development cost, is significantly more expensive. The materials is pretty similar. There's a lot of extra labor based on how long those cycle times are, as well as the overhead and the setup costs. But the development cost is really where it hits hard because we put in a lot of hours working on this, with 4 of us working constantly. So the fully burdened cost, if we only have 5 cars, it's a little over $5,000. But same analysis, if we go to an annual volume of 5,000, then our cost goes down to $170, which is still a lot, but it's a really awesome looking car.
Thank you. Can you show your 2 summary cost slides? So
these ones are the...
So the simple is 165, and then the complex...
Oh, that should say complex, I'm sorry. Yeah, 170 for the
Well, I'm
complex.
just looking at your production costs, 165. Yeah. So go back to your simple, 126. And the difference in machining time?
Mostly. I mean, the machining time was significantly more.
Yeah, so then how are the costs so close?
Because the actual labor time is whichever is greater of the mills. So that didn't amount to as much of a difference, but the overhead, you have to account for both machines. So that's quite a bit.
So overhead, I mean, part of it is how many cars you can produce a year, right?
Right.
So how many can you get out of the simple, and how many can
we'll
you get?
We'll definitely be able to get about twice as many simple cars as we do.
Yeah, so it's sort of strange. You know, if you think about your cost factors, it's sort of strange that your costs are so close.
Yeah, I mean, when you consider that the annual volume will probably be about twice as much for the simple design, it'll be different.
Well, I know, but you're presenting a cost per car, which has to have some production volume assumption, but it's something you might take a look at in your
the actual
report.
Production costs are not that different. I mean, it is the development cost that...
It's a totally different issue we're talking about. But if your machining times are so different, how could the production costs not be significantly different?
I mean, the machining time for the actual car body is different, but the chassis and the wheels, they didn't change as much.
Okay.
So.
Right, but again, you can use different machines. You know, so it's all about production rate, and that's why we did all that production analysis. So if you can distribute those things to other machines, you know, what's your bottleneck rate, and how many cars, given your capital assets, how many cars can you really produce, you know, given these capital assets?
Yes.
That's how you build your cost analysis. And so whenever you guys are presenting stuff, you've got to, you know, you run through your analysis, and then what sounds strange, given what else what the rest of the story you've told, what seems out of sorts, and you want to make sure you get there before your audience does, right? I mean, maybe there is some, you know, and where does the cost come from? Are most of your costs materials costs? Are most of your costs capital costs? Are they labor costs? What's really driving your production cost analysis? That's the point I want you guys to get to in terms why you're doing the cost analysis. The actual number at the end of the day isn't as important as you understand how do you do a cost analysis. You know, just like I was telling the cheater team, you know, if you wind up that most of your cost is in assembly, then when you're putting forward your cost analysis, address it. You know, show that you understand where your costs are coming from, what's driving them, where are the opportunities to reduce it. That's what your customer is going to be looking for. And so, assembly time, is this included, not included?
It is included in the labor cost. So our assembly time wasn't that bad. For the simple car, it was probably about 20 minutes. Because we managed to get them disassembled pretty quickly without breaking things.
Yeah. And your automation for production, you punted on that, you did it?
The problem is that
Jerry got sick.
Jerry was he knew how to work the OpenSim, and we didn't. That's what it comes down to.
Okay.
We had a pretty good idea going into it. Like, we knew how to make the robot work. We were gonna do.
Yeah, so I mean, if you've done stuff, show it, right? You should certainly
We didn't
show.
want to show our failures, but we were gonna machine the bottom and mill free and the top and
producing,
mill
you
two.
know, it's a production class, so you're also looking forward to what could be done. So if you, I mean, if you didn't spend any time doing stuff, or you don't have an idea of what to do or how to finish it up, don't put it in. But if you've gotten most of the way there, you can see where those critical issues that finally need to be addressed, why not put it in? It puts you in a better frame, right? Because why should there be any, you know, having an operator, your operator charges are rather high for this type of machine. But if you don't need them there, why have them there? Right? Any other questions from the team leader?
When you say production costs, what do you mean with that?
That's all of the materials, like right overhead.
But how can the materials be the same, like for 5 cars and for 5,000? I don't. Or is
Well,
it like
the labor and overhead, like all of our cycle times didn't change at all. So
It's a production cost per car.
per car, right?
yeah.
It's per car. So it still doesn't change per car, even like volume wise.
Seems strange. I agree.
Well, it was material, labor, and overhead and everything that, like, our cycle times didn't change just because we made.
Well, that's why I made the comment
because
about
like if you buy
what
material in
portion
bulk
of
and
your
stuff, like,
costs are
maybe you can-
capital costs, because if you're running 1, 2 versus 3 shifts, it should be changing.
Right. And you might be able to lower it like that, or like maybe at a point. I don't know.
Another reason why they end up coming pretty close to each other between the simple design and the complex design at the end is that the simple design, it was simple to design, and so at the end, the variable cost of each car is higher than the complex design, because the complex design uses less material. Now, it compensates that with a machining time, because the simple car doesn't take as long, but the complex design doesn't take as much materials. So that's where they kind of balance each other. And you know, as we increase production, we'll eventually lower from full fixed cost to just the variable cost when it tends to infinity. So at the end, we're just like trying to, as much as we increase production, we're trying to look at the variable cost of each car.
So you're racing both cars today?
Yes.
How are you going to steer this one?
Oh,
You'll see.
that's the interesting thing.
Think of tanks.
Yes.
What does the FPC stands for?
Fully burdened cost.
Yeah.
That's the
Ah.
important one.
All right. Awesome job, guys. Okay, so have you guys figured out who can race against whom? Because